Hi there, I'm Ashok Khosla. Welcome to your Environment Business Update, The Green Show. Consider how far we have come in recent years. The environmental movement in the 1960s was largely preoccupied with pollution prevention at the local level. In the 70s, it widened its scope to include resource management issues highlighted by the limits to growth thinking of that period. In the 1980s, it went on to encompass acid rain, global warming, and ozone depletion. Today, it has graduated to promote sustainable development. The advocates of this concept have helped to forge a new and increasingly powerful consensus that a clean environment and economic development can and must go hand in hand.
Today, The Green Show brings to you a story on eco-friendly houses. We take a critical look at the emergence of the water filter market. And finally, we take you for a noiseless drive into the world of battery-operated vehicles.
Each one of us would like to make a statement within our lifetime, a good house or a building that stands out among the ordinary ones. Not everyone is Shah Jahan to leave behind a Taj Mahal. Today's architectural marvels need not be made of marble, nor do they have to be white. In fact, the in thing today is green architecture. Not only is this trend stylish, elegant, and comfortable, but these unique statements are friendly to the pocket, and most of all, to the environment.
New buildings use more energy than those of the past because of their energy-intensive air conditioning and heating systems. The typical modern office building with its glass facade and mechanical climate control system have an enormous appetite for energy. And this heating and cooling is done with ozone-depleting substances.
The factories in India, for example, are the largest consumers of energy, but a lot of that energy is in the process, which can't really be done much with. So it's a different field. But the biggest culprits where there is a lot of savings that can be implemented are office buildings and commercial complexes. Now, a large number are becoming air conditioned. Naturally, this means that the more they consume, the greater potential there is for saving as well. But even those buildings which are not air conditioned and simply lit with artificial light, which is the commonest expense of energy in offices, one can manage to design in ways that will almost completely eliminate the use of artificial lighting.
It is estimated that the heating, cooling, and lighting of buildings accounts for 10% of the commercial energy used in most developing nations. This is a strain on our non-renewable energy resources, apart from creating a diseased environment.
So therefore, we have to change our processes of design and make them scientific. And I think one of the important learning points is to go back to the indigenous architecture and learn from that.
This is a country starved of power, energy, and this is the country also with lucky we have lots and lots of sun. And if we don't use sun to our benefit, we would be known as fools. So sun, energy, now this is good enough two things though, which will promote its acceptance. Even if it offsets 20% of our energy needs in the country. There will be tremendous benefit accruing out of it.
We now have an alternative in sustainable architecture. The sources of power in this environment-friendly architecture are the sun, the sky, the earth, the air, and water. It means using environmentally clean materials like mud blocks in place of burnt bricks, allowing maximum sun in winter, open spaces for cooling in summer, big windows for natural light, and using solar power to provide energy. Many conventional energy needs can be supplied by solar energy on an economically competitive basis. The functions of collecting, storing, and using the sun's heat are integrated into the structure of the house. This is termed as passive solar architecture.
A passive building house refers to that building which takes into consideration those aspects of building design by which you can have comfortable environment inside the space. This refers to, for example, orientation of the building, the shading devices, the vegetation, the control of the wind movement, the control of transmission of heat, and so on, depending on the climatic zones in which the building is situated.
The technology is directly connected to the sun and is least damaging to the environment. For admitting heat, large windows or solar collectors are oriented towards the south and small or no windows on the other sides. Retention requires good insulation and adequate masses of heat-absorbing materials like interior brick walls, interior water tanks, etc. These storage masses automatically release their heat as the room cools off at night. Modified windows, walls, skylights, and roof sections dramatically reduce the energy requirements of a building. Another attraction in this architecture is its cost efficiency.
Daylight contains less heat compared to any artificial light, even the most efficient artificial lights. So potentially it has the advantage that it can offset artificial light, thereby not only directly generating savings in terms of energy used in artificial light, but can also reduce the amount of energy used in air conditioning, because it's a cooler source of light than any other. It can, of course, also be used in warmer, in colder climates.
Eco-friendly architecture has a bright future, and alternate energy sources are self-renewing and non-polluting. The Ministry of Non-Conventional Energy Sources recently formalized a policy for promoting solar passive architecture all over the country. Organizations like HUDCO and the Central Public Works Department are actively encouraging R&D on solar passive buildings. In Himachal Pradesh, the Council for Science, Technology and Environment has formulated guidelines for all buildings within the state. But what is more significant is the increasing number of architects who are entering this field due to the increased interest in such architecture being shown by their clients. Ecological offices are being planned and built all over the world, and eco-friendly thinking will be influencing building activities in a very big way.
Yes, I think, solar passive architecture is essential because, after all, a human being is going to live in it, and you've got to consider the comfort levels. But to make a fashion out of solar architecture is what I have my reservations about. We are not looking into the problem where it is. We're trying to find a solution for a problem that exists. My question would be, did you need to have that problem? And let's look at the root cause of the problem. For instance, let me give you a case in point. Today you have Nehru Place, Bikaji Kama Place, and all these places. They're all mega centers. With the mega centers, you have an enormous amount of heat generation because of the amount of hard paved areas that you generate to have car parks. Maybe the car parking need to be softscaped. In the first place, did you require a mega center? The larger the mega center, the bigger the problems. The bigger the traffic problems. You design energy systems for intake for 2 hours in a day and an offload for 2 hours in a day, and energy systems for 5-hour utilization 8-hour utilization, 5 days a week. And there we are generating the largest problem. Having generated it, then out of sheer fashion, we are going into solar passive architecture. The problem is in the planning strategy itself.
Every year, millions of rupees are spent on security in offices, factories, and homes. Fences, grills, alarms, hidden cameras, not to mention guards and guns. Security is big business today. Think of how different it could be if we were to invest a fraction of this money instead on employment generation and other opportunities for the poor. By removing one of the root causes of crime, we could also remove a large part of our insecurity. Unfortunately, social systems find it easier to react and cure than to anticipate and prevent. And this is just one of the many paradoxes we live with. Here is another one.
80% of the communicable diseases in India are waterborne. Typhoid, gastroenteritis, diarrhea, cholera, hepatitis, worms, to name a few. Every year, 73 million man-days are lost and about rupees 800 crores is spent in medical treatment. It is not just the water sources that are contaminated. The pipes are damaged, rusted or leaking, and toxic industrial effluents seep into them. Most people have given up expecting the government to provide clean, safe water. They believe that they have to protect themselves, and in response to this need, water filters have become the fastest growing products on the market.
If you talk about a filter, even in some of the best the educated class, when they talk about filter, and the first thing that comes into their mind is a storage filter, which is basically removing just sediment from the water. It's just sediment from the water which is being removed, and they are happy that it's filtered water.
There are different types of water filters in the market. Some use pebbles, ceramic candles, others filter paper, and yet others ultraviolet light. Which water filter is the best?
What is it that is in water that causes me concern? One are toxic chemicals. Very few filters will remove that, but filters that use activated charcoal will remove some of that. The other is bigger organisms, cysts and so on. Filters will remove that. But the one that causes us most concern today amongst the disease-causing organisms is the virus that causes hepatitis. And filters will not remove the virus that causes hepatitis.
Filters that use small pebbles succeed only in trapping solids. They have no effect on the bacteria, microorganisms, or chemicals. So also the clay matka, where water is poured through a cloth into the clay receptacle. The two-tier water filter that uses ceramic candles also only captures the solid sediment, leaving all the viruses, protozoa, cysts and parasites to flow into the lower container. Ultraviolet light is slightly better. It uses quartz tubes to kill bacteria. But again, the ultraviolet water filters only kill the least resistant bacteria, leaving all the major illness-carrying bacteria intact. These quartz tubes need frequent cleaning and are both fragile and expensive. It does not have any impact on the hazardous chemicals in the water. Another popular water purifier is the machine that has an inbuilt tri-iodized medium to kill bacteria. Iodine is released in small doses. Of course, the parasites and chemicals are not cleaned, though the bacteria is. Unfortunately, in this kind of filter, neither the seller nor the buyer know how many gallons of water can be purified with one cartridge. Some filters use chemical tablets and chlorine. These leave the water with a strong taste and smell. Excessive chlorine can be carcinogenic too.
A residual dose of 0.2 ppm of chlorine was okay. But should you have a higher dose, you get that tang of chlorine. Or if you're making tea, the milk will suddenly go sour, and problems of that sort. So gradually, and again another problem is associated if the chemical is not very pure, then there is really no chlorination taking place. You're just dumping some lime into it, and that's just then flowing out to the water supply.
Can the government remove the industrial waste from the water? No, because it is very expensive. So that is why the need comes for a filter which will not only remove bacteria, virus, sediment and chlorine, but all these industrial and agricultural waste also.
As the pollutants in the water rise, the filter technologies in the market today are inadequate. Hospitals report that a large number of people coming with waterborne diseases are those who depend on water filters.
Keep in mind also that there are many commercial filters and water purification systems, domestic systems available. All of them need maintenance, and a person may have bought a very fancy and very expensive system, but if it is not maintained, it soon becomes ineffective.
Many people who use filters forget the only safe way of purifying water is to boil it. The water must be kept at a boil for 3 to 5 minutes and then drunk within 24 hours.
Preparations for the 1995 budget are already on. One can expect the prices of most commodities to go up again, in the nation's interest, of course. But is having to pay more necessarily the best way to serve the nation? Of course, it may be a good way to reduce consumption, which even in a poor country like ours now becomes essential. But a more constructive approach would be to develop cheaper and better alternatives. Take, for example, diesel and petrol-driven vehicles. Apart from burning a hole in our pocket, they also burn out our lungs and eyes. It is high time we design new engines that can give petrol-based vehicles a run for their money.
At the moment, everyone is looking at short-term technical fixes to reduce the pollution emitted by vehicles. Lead-free petrol, catalytic converters, doing away with two-stroke engines. These are some of the solutions bandied about. None of them come close to solving the problem. One may remove lead, but what about sulfur, the carbon monoxide, the nitrous oxide, and the hydrocarbons, each death-dealing in its own way? The answer being sought all over the world is a vehicle that is not dependent on fuel that emits exhaust gases. Battery-operated vehicles are one answer. The vehicles are powered by electricity from batteries that not only operate the car, but the air conditioning, lights, heating, and the audio systems. The vehicle causes no pollution since it has no emissions. It is also much quieter than a normal car.
Battery system you basically use when you are moving in a congested traffic, because while moving slow you tend to waste a lot of petrol because engine is idling and is running. In battery, the start-stop operation, that is you move little and then you stop, then you move little, is much better and much well handled. So battery operated vehicles in a congested traffic area is a boon, I would say.
How does it compare with petrol and diesel?
It's much more economical as far as the petrol and diesel is concerned. Firstly, the maintenance is very, very low, and per kilometer running is also is nearly, I would say, around 1/3, depending on what type of a design is. So I think comparison that way, it is one up to a petrol or a diesel car.
The Ministry of Non-Conventional Energy Sources has been running a shuttle service of 12 such buses for its staff since 1989. In 5 years, the buses have carried over 10 lakh people and saved 26 lakh rupees on local conveyance. 7 companies are manufacturing these vehicles. BHEL's passenger model costs 8 lakhs. Shattelek's costs 6 lakhs. Different industrial models range from rupees 50,000 to 6 lakhs. The vehicles run at 60 kilometers an hour, which is adequate for most city traffic. The batteries need to be recharged every 8 hours.
Diesel operated van of similar capacity will be about 2.5 lakhs. But it is consuming the diesel and it produces pollution, and as you see that we have to import a lot of diesel and petroleum crude to meet the demand of the diesel. So, it is in the interest of the country that we should promote the battery operated vehicle, which helps in reducing the import of the crude and outflow of the foreign exchange.
The ministry has agreed to subsidize the vehicles produced by Shattelek and the Many Material Movement. The subsidy on the passenger car is rupees 2 lakhs, and with it come 2 sets of batteries. For the industrial van, it is 50,000 with 1 set of batteries. These subsidies are given to NGOs and industries and not to individuals. These battery-operated vehicles are ideal for internal use in industrial complexes, for example, like Jamshedpur's Tata Steel, and in national parks and sanctuaries.
This is now, as I said, that there's no noise, there's no pollution, and when people use it in the factories, they don't want the other workers to be disturbed with the vehicle moving around. And there are companies who now intend to go in for such vehicles for movement of their chairmen and managing directors within the plant, taking their visitors around, because a normal automobile vehicle, one thing, it is very large in size. It has got its limitations to maneuver it within the factory premises, inside the factory sheds, and their visitors can really not have a good broad outlook from the sitting in a petrol car or vehicle inside. The battery operated vehicle has got all the sides open, so they have a much broader view of whatever they can see, or they are being explained while moving around in the industry.
If the government would just make it mandatory for its own officers and departments to use these vehicles, pollution in Delhi would immediately come down by 15%. Its higher cost is irrelevant. For what the government saves on cars, it spends on treating people with lung diseases.
Although the greening of business has already begun, the problems still outnumber the solutions. Full integration of environmental concerns into business practices will continue to remain a distant dream unless managers take great care to evaluate their operations, both for profits and for their wider impact. Companies must not forget that tomorrow's customer will not be satisfied simply by the price and quality of their product. He or she will also need reassurance on its social and environmental impact. Apart from ISI and ISO certification, customers will also look for the Eco Mark. Make sure your product has it.